Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carlos Phoenix, and we are at Garage, basically, where the idea of Garage is that we want to talk about entrepreneurs who have started from the garage, so to speak, to their successes. And today I have a great and special guest. We've known each other for a number of years, and it was just an honor that he'd be able to come on live with me. So I'm a little disheveled. A lot of stuff happened today, so it's going to be really good to be able to have a great conversation and just kind of chillax a little bit. So my special guest is Stone Stafford, as you see below. He is an entrepreneur, a music business coach. He's also where I've met him at the owner of Icon Studios, and he also does a podcast. So, what's up, Stone? How are you,
What's up, man? What's up, Carlos? Thanks for inviting me, bro.
man? It's been a while that I wanted to do something like this.
Right,
I ever since the early days of us knowing each other,
right.
knowing that media was morphing and changing and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
And then being at the studio, having done episodes in your studios. So that's kind of like where, I knew, why is my brain going to fart right now?
Sorry,
Um,
I'm trying to remember exactly where. Did we meet in Nashville? Is that where we met?
no, actually, I think we met at the studios,
Okay, okay,
and your buddy there was constantly bringing new artists in.
okay.
Um,
Ian? Was that Ian?
Ian,
Ian Burke, right?
geez, man. So that's how disheveled I am.
Right, right. I get it.
And don't tell him I messed up because I want him as a guest eventually. So, but all right. So the purpose of the show is to kind of inspire
Okay.
the new generation, the new youth. We're using this new technology to be able to get the message out there in terms of we know that it's difficult as an entrepreneur to
Hmm.
make it in any kind of business.
Right, right.
And so to me, like seeing your business and seeing the type of things, the type of people that come through your studio, for example,
Mhm.
to me is an example of leadership and success. But I want to kind of start from the early days. I want to start with the early stories of how kind of people got inspired or made it a mission to get to the certain point that they're at now. And
Right.
so let's go back. Tell us about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born in Trenton, New Jersey. Um, Single mom. Have a brother and a sister. The typical struggle story, not a lot of money, working two, three jobs, all that kind of stuff. But my mom, she was a go getter. She was very driven, and the opportunities that she either missed out on or didn't take advantage of, because even her upbringing was a little rough. So there were a lot of opportunities she had that she wasn't allowed to take. So her life definitely would have been on a different path. And so she wanted to make sure we had as many opportunities as we could that she didn't. So she did everything she could to hurry up and get us out of Trenton. If anyone's familiar with Trenton, it isn't. I mean, I'm not knocking Trenton, but
Now, this is
it's
New Jersey or Trenton where?
New Jersey, Trenton, New
Okay.
Jersey. So it's not the most fertile ground to grow up in, but yeah. So she did. She got did everything she had to get us out of there. So I actually ended up going to boarding school in sixth grade in Princeton. I went to the American Boy Choir School. So my family is musically inclined. My brother, he did a lot of big hits back in the day with Shaka Khan and stuff like that. I have other brothers that have a band, so we have a musical family, but music was never really, my goal. So I didn't really have any goals, to be honest with
Did
you.
you sing or anything like that? Or
I People say I sing. I carry a tune pretty well. If I hum a song, you know the song. I put it that way.
okay.
But that was one of the things that used to always frustrate my mom is that I had these gifts that I never really pursued, never used. Like I wrote my first song, back when I think I was 12. And it was actually pretty. Now that I do what I do, music publishing, all this stuff, when I think about it back then, I was like, wow, actually, I wrote pretty good. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that was it. So I went to a boy choir school in Princeton. Then from there, I went to a place called George School in Newtown, Pennsylvania, where I went to high school, and that was where I first played football, organized football, in my sophomore year, and I was pretty good. but it led me to come to Atlanta, to Morehouse, and I actually had a music scholarship too, partial scholarship. So yeah, so that's how I got down here to Atlanta.
So let's say around what year was that?
So this is 91. This is
Okay.
1990. Yeah.
All right. So I was in high school in graduating '88. So I was still in
Okay.
Manhattan. And
Okay.
so in Atlanta, how was the music scene in Atlanta at the time?
It was just starting to pop when I got down here. I mean, this is when L.A. Reid and Babyface, they had a record label called LaFace Records, and out of LaFace Records came Tony Braxton, Usher, Outkast, um, Pink, um, TLC, duh, and a few others. So they launched some huge acts that really put Atlanta on the map, and it was like a hub because everyone from Dallas, Austin to Jermaine Dupri and Organized Noise, they were all working on these projects and stuff, and those people, they also branched off and had their own labels and successes and things like that. So the Face Records really was kind of like the birth mother, if you will. I mean, there were some people out of Georgia, in Atlanta doing well in music,
Right.
but they really got pop music and I guess rap with Outkast and stuff like on the map.
Now, in a little while, we'll see how you kind of crisscross a lot of these names. Um, so you're in Atlanta. You have
Right.
nothing to do with the scene, right?
Not yet. Well, all right. So when I came down to Morehouse in '91, I ran into a friend of mine who I knew back when I was at the boy choir school. Well, actually, even before then, I knew him since first grade. But we just happened to meet at Morehouse, and his roommate wanted to do a singing group for the talent show, the freshman week talent show. And so he can sing. He knew I sang, and then they found two other people, and so we sang at this talent show. The girls at Spelman, they loved us, and that's all it really took for me personally, is for the girls love you. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. So we sang around Atlanta for about maybe a good 2 years, 2.5 years, and eventually we ended up getting signed. Actually, we got a deal offer from LaFace Records, but our manager at the time kind of rubbed people the wrong way on that one. And
Hmm.
then MC Light, who was a legendary rapper coming up back in the day, 80s and 90s, she took us to her dad, who had a joint venture deal with Atlantic Records. So we ended up signing to him. So I had a record deal in '94.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So that
now,
was,
right now, it sounds like everything just kind of went smooth. Now, tell me a little bit of what
well,
really made it
there
difficult.
was a homeless period in there.
Okay, all right.
So,
So see, now that's the rawness that I need. So a
right.
lot of what I'm trying to get out of Garage and the message that I'm trying to get out, because usually when we get these interviews, it just that's the misconception of the
All
entertainment industry.
the things.
Yeah, that everything just like lands in everybody's lap,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
what they don't know is, nah, it's not like that. Like I
Yeah,
got my story. I was homeless just a number of years ago.
right.
So and yet here we are. We're able to have this conversation. So there's a lot of blessings that happen even
Mm,
in the darkest times, and I
yeah,
want people to hear that because otherwise they look at folks like you and be like, oh man, he just had it easy. And what I
right.
really want to get at is, nah, this is there are times when we're like either in the car or in the corner somewhere, just bawling it, knowing
Yeah.
that it's just like you don't know when the next meal's going to come and that type of stuff. Now, if you don't have that part of your story, then that's cool. But I
Oh,
know
yeah,
there's something in there.
this is
So
loaded with.
feel free, if you're okay with it, to share a little bit
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that.
no. So, all right. So let's go back a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, definitely things aren't always what they seem or how they started. So I didn't really have much drive. I was very lackadaisical, which drove my mom up the wall. So after I graduated high school, I went to community college. She worked at Mercer County Community College, so I was able to go to college for free. I'm too young and dumb to realize the value of that.
Hmm.
So I rarely went to class. I hung out in the cafeteria, really talking to girls and hanging out with my friends. I left with I ended the year with a .94 GPA. And so, for those that aren't good at math, that's less than one. So, that pissed my mom off. So she was like, "You got to get out of here. You're not doing anything. You got to get out of here. Either you go to the military, or get out and get a job. So I was going to go to the Air Force, but I had a duodenal ulcer back then and flat feet. So that kept me from getting into the Air Force. And so finally, through my church and all this stuff, she was able to pull some strings. I was able to get into Morehouse. We got the money from school for a music scholarship and stuff. But when I came down here, I literally came down with an Air Force duffel bag full of clothes and $25. I had no housing. My housing wasn't set up yet. We still hadn't quite paid my admission fee yet. So when I say I came down on a wing and a prayer, it was a freaking wing and a prayer. My mom was a deep woman of faith, as am I. So I'm walking down the street to Ashby towards Morehouse. I get there, and she was like, "You just go there. You never know what will happen. Just ask and this and stuff." So I'm standing in line. That's when I ran into my friend Chris, who was standing in line, and I told him I didn't have a place to stay yet, and so he invited me to stay on his floor in his dorm room. So I slept on the floor in his dorm room, and that was when the whole singing group kind of started happening and stuff like that. But I was sleeping on his floor for a while. And during that whole freshman week too, you had to have a room key in order to eat. Like they let you in the cafeteria by your room key. Of course, I didn't have a room key. So every day I was just wondering what I would do as far as eating is concerned. And one day we're sitting in assembly and I move my feet and I hear like this jingle on the floor and somebody had dropped their key. Now I'm an honest guy, so I asked everyone around me, whose key it was, and no one claimed it. So that's how I was able to eat for the rest of the week from that room key. So, and like God has always provided for me throughout my life like that, which I got to talk about that too, because it was a blessing for sure. But people don't understand that when you make things, when I speak, I always tell the story about this little kid that helped the caterpillar out of his cocoon. And when he let the caterpillar out, he came out on the porch the next day and saw that the butterfly was dead. And he was crying, and his grandma, said, "Mom, Grandma, the butterfly's dead. Why?" And his grandma explained to him that, well, when you helped the butterfly out of the cocoon, you made it easy for the butterfly. So therefore, it uses that struggle to get out of the cocoon to strengthen its wings so that it can fly and then, do what it needs to do to survive. But because you took that struggle away from the butterfly, it couldn't fly and therefore it died. And so God always provided when I needed things, but in that provision, I never developed that gut survival thing to make it happen, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And again, that's not God's fault, it's my fault, because my mom was like that. She tried to teach me, but I was just young, dumb, and stupid. So going back to that, so I'm sleeping on my friend Chris's floor. And then finally I'm able to eat for a week. And then a friend of mine, so I went to high school and first year of college with Bill Cosby's son Ennis. So we were good friends. Ennis Cosby, rest in peace. And so he and another guy, a friend of his, they lived in these upperclassmen dorms, and they were moving off campus to an apartment, but the dorm was paid. The house was paid for. And so I ran into him. His name was Bino Smith, and Bino Andrews, and I told him that I didn't have a place to stay. He was like, "Oh man," he was from South Africa. He's like, "Oh man, you can stay in my dorm. It's already paid for. It's already paid." I hate when I do accents, but it's lo and behold. So I ended up staying the rest of my freshman year in an upperclassman dorm that was paid for. You see, and so you can see where this God is moving and stuff. So we're singing around, and we get the record deal. And my manager, so the summertime comes, my manager puts me in this house, and at this point, he's already kind of flaky. So two guys ended up going back home. They said, "Look, we're going home for the summer. We'll come back and we'll finish this stuff." Myself, groupmate Antonio, and groupmate Eric, we were like, "Nah, we're going to stay here. We're going to work on the album, stuff like that." The house that my manager was renting for me and another guy to stay in, he stopped making the payments. And so my bandmate, he had a job and his parents paid for his share. But, my mom didn't have, the money to do that. And she kept saying, "Come home, come home." And I was like, "No, we're going to make it. We're going to make it down here." So finally the lady kicked me out. And this is right at the beginning of summer. And so for the next 3 months, I had nowhere to stay, literally. So some friends of mine, I stayed on their couch for a bit, and then I had to move out of there. I was there for like a week. Then another friend of mine, he had a friend. I stayed on his friend's floor His friend found out, wanted me out, so I was there for like 2 nights. Slept on benches, MARTA benches, which is the subway down here. Just wherever I could lay my head, I did. But a lot of friends came through and would let me stay here a night, there a night, and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to get jobs this whole time. So I'm not a slack, but no one would hire me. McDonald's, Captain D's, Long John Silver's. I couldn't get a freaking job. And so one day it had to be like 11 o'clock at night. There was a payphone. This is back when payphones. I don't know how young your listeners are, but this is when there were payphones. So I went to call my mom, collect, and I just noticed like a coin stuck in the slot. So I took a stick and I tried to get it out, but it fell all the way through, and 50 cents came out, a few dimes, some nickels. And so I took that 50 cents and I went to the corner store and I bought two Little Debbie snack cakes and I cut them in half. And so that fed me for the next 2 days. I ate half in the morning and then I ate half at night. And I did that again. And I would go back to that pay phone every night. And I swear to you, there was always change in that pay phone. I think one time I got $1 out. Man, I was freaking rich.
Oh man.
But needless to say, I lost a ton of weight that summer. A friend of mine bought me an S curl. Like I don't have any hair now, but a friend bought me an S curl because I couldn't get a haircut. And for those who don't know, for Black people, S curl makes your hair curly.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was crazy, man. I got chased by the MARTA police because I would hop the turnstile to go to the mall to apply for jobs. And finally, I did get a job. So I got a job at the Gap, and that was the beginning of the improvement of my life from there. So that was the behind the scenes story of okay, yeah, I got a record deal, but all this crap was going on at the same time.
Yeah. See, like that. So, and, like even right now, I'm launching a business,
Right.
and people just see that I just went to Vegas. People just see that, oh, I'm having dinner with people and all this type
Hmm.
of stuff. So they see the, let's say, the glam portion.
Right.
They don't realize the sacrifices that it takes just to be able to just travel. Like I don't have all that money sitting down just to be able to go to
Right.
Vegas and chill. To get the
Hmm.
hotel room, to this and that. I mean, I was ready to just look. I'll just walk the streets all day, all night,
Hmm.
and later I'll just tell this story.
Right.
But in terms of, because I'm imagining mixed feelings in what you were going through at that time. You're
Right.
signed by a label. That's exciting. You get enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
But you're sitting on a couch or laying in a couch and you're like, man, where's my next meal?
Right.
So how did you sort out those thoughts or feelings?
If there is one thing I have been blessed with, and that is a go with the flow personality. I
Awesome.
never, and this, it was one of that's the whole lackadaisical thing that got on my mom's nerves. Because on the bad side is there's no drive, there's no self initiative, there's no things are gonna work out, right? But then when things get rough, I'm kind of the guy you want to be around because I don't get too. I mean, yeah, I was there. I was upset. There were nights of tears and scared. And I mean, sure, those things happen, but overall, I just dealt with it day to day, just day by day. You know what I mean? And whatever came, I dealt with it as it came. There was no plan except to try to get a job. But other than that, it was just I just dealt with the struggle each day, and that's really all you can do. Is just deal with the struggles each day. I mean, you can have the best laid plans in the world, but life is going to throw you a curveball. Things are going to happen the way they weren't supposed to happen, and you can't think when you're upset and when you're anxious and when you're fearful. So the best thing to do is just stay calm, remain calm, check, be like, okay, I'm breathing and I can think. If you're breathing and you can think, there's nothing you can't do. That's what I've always lived by. As long as I have a breath, and I test it, I'll
So
do
many
some
people have a hard time with that.
they do. They
They
do. And
overthink, like they think the world is their responsibility, everything's on their shoulders, and they
yeah,
can't move to the next step.
yeah,
And sometimes when they see like the sharks in the water, they don't want to go in the water.
right.
And it's sad because that's what prevents people from pursuing a dream, or
Hmm.
or going for the job that they wanted, that type of stuff. It's
Yeah,
sick.
fear paralyzes, and I know people like to say that fear can be healthy, and I get it. Like I get what they mean by that. But at the end of the day, the wrong side of that fear, it'll paralyze you, and you'll never do anything. And you have to do. Even sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, you just have to do. You hear the saying, you can't drive a parked car, and there are a lot of people who are believers who would say, "Oh, God will, God will, God will too," and God's like, "I ain't doing nothing until you get started." You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I've always had that personality. So it's not to say that I was just skipping down the street, 12 o'clock in the morning, like la 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 la. But I don't know. I can never say I was never scared. And part of it too was I knew I could always go home. But
So,
this is, this is my chance to show that I could do it, I guess.
at what point did things start to turn around or change? Was it a successful record label release, or did something else happen?
And I'm still trying to make it in music all this time. But at least now I had a job. I was able, I had some friends from school from Morehouse. We got an apartment together, so now I'm able to have rent, split it 3 ways, and everything was good. The turnaround honestly happened. All right, 2 ways. So the guy, his name's Chris Young, and so he was the guy that I saw. We were friends since first grade, and I slept on his floor. So we stayed in contact the entire time because we were in a group together. So he had an apartment. Eventually, we became roommates, and being around him helped a lot because Chris was the driven guy. He was the go-getter. He did have the dream and he had the plan, and so being with him for I think we had to be roommates maybe 2 3 years, something like that. That was very good for me to be around, and a lot of that rubbed off on me. It really rubbed off on me. If nothing else, it at least helped me try to excel in the job that I was in, even if I wasn't trying to go down the entrepreneur path, because I never really thought I was an entrepreneur. And for most people, you don't have to be born an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurialism can be learned, and
Absolutely.
I'm proof of that.
Yeah.
So that was the first uptick of my mentality, and that's where it really started for me. It wasn't so much the situation, the circumstances around me. It was my mentality changed first, and that's with anything. If there's anything in life you want to do, you have to start with your mind first, like absolutely first. I mean, if your mind's not prepared, your body will fail every single time. So Chris was very instrumental in getting that to me after my mom. Chris would be next. And then after that, I met my current wife on a blind date. And we
Nice.
argued the entire time on the first date. And she was
Wow.
cute and everything, but I was like, this is not it. And she didn't like me either. She wasn't a fan of me either. But um, I decided to keep her as someone I would call if I just wanted to go out and no one else was available, right? But the thing we had in common is we went to the same church. Now, I grew up in church, so I knew the Bible and all this kind of stuff.
And this
She
in
did.
Georgia.
This is in Georgia. In Trenton, in Jersey. I grew up in church with my mom, and like I said, my whole family we're faith. We're a faith family, so faith has always been a part of my life. My wife, she's from Linwood or Compton, in L.A. They didn't grow up in church. She ain't
Mm.
know nothing about the Bible, no God, and all this stuff. But she had gotten to this point in her life where that was a path that she was walking down. And so we went to the same church. And because I had some maturity in all of that, she really liked that. And she admired that and respected that. And that actually is how we ended up spending time because we went to Bible study every week together. And then, when you're spending that kind of time together, after a while, you're like, she's not so bad. He's not so bad. But again, she was driven. Now she was an entrepreneur for sure.
Okay.
After high school, she's never had like a job. She's always did stuff for herself. Well, that's not true. She worked for Electra Records, but
Oh,
she she was always driven. She was always driven. She always wanted to have her own business and stuff like that. And again, so that just picked up from what I was learning from Chris. Now I'm dating this person with that same mentality, and I gleaned from it. You know, I would pick up the things that she do, and slowly they just made me better. Like this is a case where the woman really did make me better, make me a better man. And if you're around us, you know, we bicker. It's comedy to our friends because unfortunately we bicker a lot. You know,
It's kind of like siblings almost.
yeah, siblings are just bad friends. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I hate to say that's our dynamic because we're working on changing that. But 27 years now, it's you know. But the thing with me is I can learn from anything and anyone. You know, I've learned lessons from 6 year olds and 60 year olds. And even if I don't like you or we're at odds, if there's an area that you're better than me at, I can compartmentalize and I can separate it. If I'm forced to deal with you, then I will look at those things that I can get from you. And with her, it was all kinds of stuff, you know. And she really helped me see the fact that I didn't really know how to be a man as far as the head of a household kind of guy, provider. I didn't have that growing up. But she never berated me for it per se. Um, but it just caused me to. It's a long story, but but she just helped me be who I am today. So between my mom, then my friend Chris, and my wife, I always give them the biggest credits of helping me become who I've become today. And of course, God will always get it first.
So do you still have some of your original friends, or do you find that that changed as your career changed?
Both. I have some of my original friends, few and far between because time and distance will cause those to fade. But like my childhood friends, Joe and Mike, definitely football season. We all get back in touch, but throughout the year, every once in a while, we'll say, "Hey, what's up?" So, and then this guy Jay, who introduced me to my wife, he's like, "That's my best bud." So we talk and chat a lot. And then the guys from the group, we'll keep in touch every once in a while. But there's a handful
So,
of them in touch with.
all right. So now you have this beautiful relationship. Now, do you have any kids?
No, we weren't able to have kids
Okay. So, and how long you guys been together?
since '95. So we dated 11 months and then got married, which I
Man,
don't.
I can hug you just hearing that. That's
Huh?
awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
No,
don't
that's
see
true.
it
That's
like
truly awesome. Just
it is that we made it, but but again, like that's the beautiful thing. But underneath it all, there were three almost divorces. You know,
okay.
but my whole thing was I don't like to quit on things. And I always consider myself the marrying kind of guy. I've been told that by almost every girlfriend's parent. And I'm very accommodating. So I can, I'm malleable, I can adjust usually to most people.
That's very
She,
powerful.
I think so. But she was by far my biggest challenge. By far my biggest challenge. Um, but I never wanted that L on my record. Now, I don't know if that's really a good thing or not, but we definitely went through some unhappy years. And, I had friends who loved me and care about me. It's like, look, why would you stay unhappy? Like, be happy. And same with her. And we had those talks. But I always had the mindset of I sit down and see if there was anything I could do. It only took one thing. If there was just one thing that I could do to be better or to contribute better, then as far as I'm concerned, I didn't really have the license to get divorced. And that's what I would do. I would sit down. I would like, all right, at this point, I've done everything that I can do, and Holy Spirit would be like, well, not really, because she wanted this, and you could do this, but you won't do that. I was like, so
No, that's
so
awesome.
that's me. But I think a thing that I've been blessed with, really, is just my personality, is being introspective. I truly feel we have more control over our lives than we give ourselves credit for. We are incredible creations, incredible human beings. And I truly believe that unless you are quite literally physically incapable, there's nothing that we can't do. But we defeat ourselves up here in our minds first, each and every time, and we allow how we feel to be our reality. And that's not true, unfortunately. So, yeah, I understand that everyone has a reality because everything is perspective. But if your perspective isn't giving you what you want, you need to change your freaking perspective. And a lot of people don't want to do that, And so I can't even say it and I can't say it in any more uncertain terms. Like if you don't like what you're seeing, change what you're looking at. Like it's all on you. It is. I don't care if it's losing weight or getting a better job or finding like it is literally on you. And some of us are victims of circumstances, and I get it. But like you may have heard before, like what happens to you might not be your fault. Well, what you do from on there is damn sure your responsibility.
Yeah,
And we
I talk a lot about how, and to simplify it, a lot of people use their past to define their future.
right,
So if they had a lot of negativity or terrible things that happened to them in their past,
right,
like I don't know, I dated a girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, and she broke my heart. So I'll never look at a blonde hair, blue eyed girl again.
right,
And it's like, well, but that might be the person that you're supposed to be with, and now you're denying them just because you're choosing to use your past to
right.
define your future.
Yeah,
So,
we
and
we
then they
use
do that in so many different ways.
and the key word there really is that we use it to justify our future. And the problem with justifications is justification is simply making an excuse for something. That's all it is. It's just making an excuse for something. So justification does not mean it's right. But again, that goes back to feeling. When we get control of our minds and our emotions, I mean, you might as well go ahead and just throw a freaking red cape on because at that point, there's nothing. You're you're unstoppable. But it's the hardest thing for some people to do.
So, okay, so you did some music. How successful was that?
So while I was in a group, that's when I realized again that I could write. So I was writing some of our songs, and I started writing with Dallas Austin, who was a big producer. Some of Puffy's hitmen, excuse me, two of those guys. And I was like, dang, I can write songs. So I started writing songs. When I was in the group, my manager at the time told me that music publishing is where all the money is in music. And that kind of really was all he had to tell me. So he said, whatever you do, man, keep writing, own copywriting. I didn't understand it then like I did now, but all I knew is that that's where the money was. So I kind of started learning about copywriting, music publishing, and I loved it. And through my wife, through a client of hers, he was getting a joint venture deal with Sony, or he had a joint venture deal with Sony. And Sony wanted to put him in office here and develop a presence in Atlanta. So they said, let us know if you know of anyone who can run our office. And so he said, I got the perfect guy. Because I was helping her with him on a whole bunch of stuff. We're pitching his writer's songs and catalogs. I was already helping him with stuff through her, through my wife. So he's like, I got the guy for you. So I had like a phone interview for about 10, 15 minutes. And I got the job.
Awesome.
So that had nothing to do with me, though. The big lesson I learned out of that thing is how life is all about relationships. Period.
Totally.
That's how
I
I
mean,
got that.
that's my big secret now.
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
the business that I'm in, I have no business being in that business.
right.
And I'll share more with you, in other conversations, but it is all about relationships.
Yeah, I
And
mean that's it. So and I mean that's how I got the job. And that job, I mean that just at that point it catapulted me. I mean I wasn't even Stone Stafford. I was Stone at Sony. Like that's how I was known through the city. But of course it caused me to meet a ton of people. And stuff like that. So one thing led to the next and led to the next. So I got a chance to sign, some writers when I was over there, and that's when I had a chance to directly and indirectly work with people like Brandy and Whitney Houston and Mandy Moore, B2K, and all this stuff. So that was a really great learning experience for me. But I learned another valuable lesson was that in this music game, a lot of times unless you're the person signing the checks or making the decisions, everyone else is a pawn. And I'm running Sony ATV in Atlanta, but I couldn't sign a thing. I mean, yeah, I signed a couple of small up and comers, but I tried to sign Avril Lavigne. Matter of fact, that was the first deal I
wow.
tried to do, and my boss wouldn't let me do it. They didn't feel that she was worth what they were asking, and of course, 12, 20 million albums later. But I tried to sign her. I tried to sign this hit songwriter named JQ. I couldn't sign that. My boss wouldn't let me sign him. There's another hit songwriter named Sean Garrett. He's done Everybody. Boss wouldn't let me sign him. Then there was another up and comer, and this guy used to keep telling me, like, Stone, man, I'm telling you, you better sign me now. You better get me now while you can get me.
Wow.
Like every time we saw each other, he's like, you better sign me. His name was The Dream. And so I missed out on that. Meanwhile, L.A. Reid has this publishing company called Hitco, and he had a guy running named Shakir Stewart, who was a dope hustler guy, not hustler, but music guy. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But each one of these guys I tried to sign, they were saying no. He signed them. He wrote them bigger checks and everything. So it was very frustrating because I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And it turns out that really I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just didn't. I was a placeholder. Is now looking back is really what I was. I was a placeholder.
Now, were you involved at all with Pink?
No, I wasn't, but I wrote with her. I
Okay.
wrote with her. Me and a guy named Sean Hall, we did 1 or 2 songs on her early on.
I was supposed to do her first album cover.
Okay.
And I met her in Times Square at a recording studio there. And when she's an amazing talent, it was it was the day that we got the first VHS copy of her first music video.
Right.
And so she was all excited. She puts it in the VCR. We start to play the tape, and I knew that they were backing her like hardcore because that music video was amazing. But when they introduced me to her, she just kind of like treated me like, "Excuse me, out of the way, boy,"
Sure.
And I'm like, "Oh."
Sure.
And at the time, that turned me off. And and I've done other album covers and what have you, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need the stress of this one. So I walked away. Man, sometimes you regret some choices.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have to put up with some BS sometimes. I mean, that just comes with the territory. But the lesson I learned after Sony was that I didn't take advantage of nurturing the relationships that I made. So when it came down to where they started laying everyone off, and at Sony Music, and then that's the label side. But then it made its way over to Sony Music Publishing, and they closed down our office. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I mean, I'll probably land somewhere. Whoop-de-whoop. I didn't land anywhere. And so there was a 6-month stint where I didn't have an industry job, and I'm like, oh boy, right? And I have a wife now in the house stuff, so I'm going to work. And one thing, a lot of people come in this industry, they feel like they can't have a regular job once they're in this industry. And I get it, because appearance is everything, So if you're running Sony literally for 4 years, and then all of a sudden you're at, Baskin Robbins, they're like, yo, this dude fell off and your credibility is shot. So I was in this mode. And so this is the behind the curtain moment for your listeners. I had to get a job. So my godmom at the time, she was an executive at Target. I was like, Mom, I need a job. Like, literally, I had no money coming in. And so she tried to get me a job as an executive, but because I never graduated Morehouse and never got my degree, they were just like, we can, even though I was qualified, she said, they love you. They said, the only reason why you're not getting this job is because you don't have a degree, which more people are understanding today how that's such BS. So I ended up catching shoplifters for like $11 an hour, So thank God it was plainclothes, because several of my peers from the music industry would come in while I'm working, catching shoplifters. But I was in plainclothes, so of course I was pretending like I was shopping. So, but I'm walking the floor, and these 2 teenage girls are cracking open CDs to steal them, and my phone rings. So I answer my phone, and it's Ian Burke. And I'm like, and he's a good friend of ours by now. Me and my wife, we're all close family. And he goes, hey, you want a job? And I was like, heck yeah, I want a job. He said, well, Jermaine Dupri is looking for someone to run his production company, and he's starting his publishing company. So I told him about you. I said, great. He said, can you talk? I said, yeah. So while I'm walking the floor, Jermaine Dupri calls me, and I'm talking to him, and I accept the job right there on the floor. So I go to my manager. And I said, listen, I just hung up from Jermaine Dupri. And he knew I was in business. He knew what I did before Target. And so I said, so I just got a job. I said, I'm in 2 weeks. I said, I'm gonna give you my 2 week notice. But he said, man, you don't even belong here. He said, today can be your last day. And so he let me end it. But an important note in that for people who are interns or coming up, young people coming up, is I gave him the courtesy of that 2 week notice. You know what I mean? By doing that, I kept that door open. God forbid, should I ever need to go back there again. So little things like that of acting professionally and being courteous and stuff like that, that's how you either burn or not burn a bridge. So yeah, so it was all good. So I worked there for a while, and that was good. I got a chance to sign a girl named Crystal Johnson. After I signed her, not 9 months later, we went #1 with Only Girl in the World on Rihanna. And then, I'm sorry, with Touch My Body on Mariah Carey. And then she ended up doing 5 more on Rihanna. Then we did Only Girl in the World, 5 more on Mariah, I'm sorry. Then Only Girl in the World on Rihanna. And then we did someone Janet, or I'm saying we, but she did. So all that was great. So I signed this hit songwriter, right?
Awesome.
I'm like, okay, I'm about to be golden. This is, we'll.
It's hard
And
not to ride that beautiful wave.
it is, man. And I'm just like, this is what I was trying to do at Sony. Now I have my chance. So these songs are blowing up, and my check is the same, which technically it should be because I'm not a part of the publishing. I didn't own any of the publishing. I just signed her. But, no bonus, no, like, what's up, So finally, the publishing company JD was supposed to launch. It was taking forever to launch. And so I was like, he was like, yeah, I'm going to shut down the production company. And I was like, well, if you shut down the production company, where does that leave me?
Target.
Right. I'm like, where does that leave me? Now, there is an overlap in here that I'm going to tell you about.
All right.
So his partner at that time called me and said, yeah, JD's going to go ahead and shut the production company down. I'm like, okay. He said, don't worry. He's going to throw you something. I said, throw me something. I just signed your #1 writer, and you're going to throw me something. Like, I'm not easily disrespected, but that was the first time I felt disrespected, and I was like, wow. I said, okay. I said, all right. So again, not to burn a bridge, I said, okay, cool. And we hung up, and I just never went back to the office ever since. But during that time, maybe a good 8 months before that, my brother-in-law, he used to be the largest African-American home builder in Dallas. He built like 1 million+ homes. And he's also kind of a music industry junkie. My wife was like, we need a studio because my clients are working all this kind of stuff. We could be getting this money. And at the time, JD didn't have a studio for his producers to work for that I was managing. I was like, yeah, we do need a studio. Whoop-de-whoop. My brother-in-law was like, let's build one. It's like, just like that. He was like, let's build one. And we're like, okay. So immediately we just started shopping around. So when I stopped going to So Def, we had started building Icon Studios. So, and of course, this is the beginning. So there's no money being made. If anything, we're just spending money, hand over fist. So yeah, did I get some jobs? I sure did. I did everything from sweeping tea dust during the third shift to cleaning banks at night. Because during the day, it was Icon. I was building Icon, working at Icon for practically free and just running that. But then I leave Icon and I go to this tea factory as a temp job doing that for a while. Then build Icon. Then I was, cleaning banks at night. Then I was building Icon. Then I was stacking shelves for bras and panties for some company, driving forklifts. This was going on for like a good year until Icon kind of got on its own feet. So that's part of the entrepreneurship too that people have to know kind of comes with it. You have to do whatever it is you got to do until your baby starts crawling. You know what I mean? And so that's what I did. And of course, no one knew about it. It isn't anything you publicize, but it worked. And I think we bought the building in 2016. So now I have a successful studio and I own the real estate.
And so an Icon for me, like, there's so many great artists that has gone through Icon. To me, I always fell in love with the studio, especially since the first time I think the first time I went in there was to see to interview a group called American Yard,
Yeah.
which was through. I think they were signed with Akon,
Yep.
and uh, and I loved their music. It was just unique. It was
Yeah.
different, and I mean, I don't know how much they might have grown or not, but just the industry is such a tough industry.
Right.
Out of a lot of industries, that's just a very tough industry because it's so focused on your own perspective and opinions of what a song may sound like, and
Mm,
hopefully the rest of the people in the world will like it too.
right.
And even that's only a small fraction of a percentage that will.
Right.
And for some, it's enough to
Yeah.
say successful.
I'm in City Rude. I was texting my mom, tell her to give me 30 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Now, and
It's all right. I know we're
we'll
live, so I was
condense it a bit.
trying to be slick with it.
So, so now you have Icon, and so
Mhm.
let some people know of some of the names that have walked through the studios,
uh,
because
who's all worked there? Shoot, Justin Bieber, Usher, Akon, Ludacris, shoot, Queen Latifah, Gladys Knight, um, Chris Brown. You know, Drummer Boy worked out of there for a couple years. And Akon actually was a tenant for like shoot 4 or 5 years.
no, now when
Um,
you say tenant, elaborate a little bit on that.
so I have there's a big part of my studio called the A Room Suite.
Okay.
Um, Icon actually was instrumental in building that out. He actually built that out and finished it for us. He was a client of my wife's.
Oh, okay.
So he came and he finished that room out and moved into it himself. So
Is
he
that the
was
one with the dance floor, or where you can?
no, that's a rehearsal room that's
Okay,
upstairs.
okay.
This is a big one that's downstairs by the vending machine in the back. So he was there for the longest time, and then we've had a lot of TV and film stuff there. Star was filmed there. 2 seasons of Greenleaf, the music was done there. Loving hip hop, growing up hip hop all the time. Some Netflix stuff. So it's a lot. We've had a lot, come through there.
I mean, you're basically embedding yourself in some of the history of music itself.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we are absolutely a part of Atlanta history, which is cool to say.
Yeah.
It's really cool to say, and just to know that I own this building, which I mean, as a matter of fact, Tasha and I, we are actually the only studio now in Atlanta with its original owners.
Wow.
Yeah, and we built it in 2008.
And what's amazing in Atlanta is that so much of the other industry, the film industry, is growing there.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping that it continues to grow there because
me too, because
it
those are
needs to
good.
make its own history. You know what I'm saying?
Those are good checks. I hope they keep growing too. I love getting TV and film projects at the studio, man. I mean, that industry in general, they're so easy to deal with, and a lot of it is because everything is so regulated, through the unions and stuff. So they have to do certain things a certain way,
Right.
which for a business owner makes it sweatless and easy for me. Whereas with music, people just coming in and you dealing with all this stuff, and I'm thankful for the business. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, TV and film is definitely a lot easier to work with for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now you're also a speaker. You do podcasts. You do classes and masterminds and all sorts of stuff. Influencing the youth. And so for me, like I see you doing that. I'm like, man, that's like I'm the type of person. I meet you. I try to do you right, and then I disappear. I disappear because I get into other projects. I get into other worlds.
Right.
I've worked in film. I've worked in television, mostly in New York. I did Tyler Perry, the first movie in Atlanta. I've done music videos and commercials and all that type of stuff. Then I've done my own, live shows and network stuff and what have you. And now, for me, I want to re-influence the entertainment industry by just using digital in every way possible.
Right.
Like this is an example of one. The company I'm launching is another. And the
Mhm.
future, there's a lot more coming.
Right.
And we'll talk about that because I always had you in the back of my head as a person that I would like to be involved with that. But tell me a little bit about what your missions are with influencing the youth and the future of entertainment.
Yeah, if I had to say I had a platform, my platform is one, accountability first, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that we are, at the end of the day, we're responsible for the things that happen to us in our lives. Period. Either stuff that we did in the past and we're getting the harvest of that, um, or we're planting seeds today, and whatever the harvest is going to be tomorrow, whether it's good or bad, from diligence or laziness, all that's under our control. So accountability is probably my biggest part of my platform, and especially for the young kids coming up now, because in this generation with technology and stuff too, like, accountability is pretty much out of the window. Like, it's ridiculous. So but it doesn't mean it's not necessary. You know what I mean? So that's a big part of my platform. And then just seeing people come into this business and do it the right way. I've been screwed in it before. I've been the pawn. I've been looked over. I've been passed over. All that stuff. And some of it was because of ignorance, because I didn't know. Some of it was because people took advantage. So I like to take all of that and kind of be a cheat code, if I can, for people coming into this game. My money doesn't, yeah, my money comes from people, but people aren't the source of those opportunities, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, the opportunities are going to come to me, but so therefore, I don't feel I need to charge people, out the wazoo, just because I know what I'm giving them is invaluable and I'm gonna get rich off of this. I do it. What I charge is what I charge because it is invaluable, and it's really for my time. Because while I'm sitting here doing this with you, I could be building this or whatever. And that's really where whatever it is I cost from my, consultant fees to my coaching and classes. That's where the costs come from. It's not because, oh, I'm gonna try to get as much money out of them as I can. Because guess what? Chances are right now you don't really have the money. And so I want to be the opportunity for you. So I can't be the opportunity and then ask you for money that you don't have. It
Right.
just doesn't work. So so that's what I do. So I spend a lot of time just teaching. I do a lot of speaking at schools. I'm doing a coaching online coaching program right now that should be launched in about 6 months. But I do consulting now. I have my podcast, Life on Podcast. That stands for Listening and Inspiring Friends in Entertainment. Um, Half the stuff you'll get from me in consulting anyway, you're going to hear on the podcast too. So there's a little cheat code for you as well, to get it. And I don't mind saying that, for free. But and that's every week. It's on every platform and YouTube. But yeah, but that's my main mission. And then just be successful, because I can do more for people the more successful that I am. You know what I mean? So that's really where my heart is at, honestly.
That's awesome. Dude, it is an honor to speak to you and to hear your story and to know. And usually I know. There's so many people in the entertainment industry that I've been able to have relationships with and friendships with and stuff like that. And it's surrounded by hardship,
Yeah.
and so it's never. I've never heard from, no matter how, let's say, elite the artist or the actor or whomever, it's never been like, oh, well, I was just born here and now I act and I do whatever and I
Right.
make a ton of money and it's it's like a free ride.
Right.
There's always stumbling blocks and difficulties and money issues and do you know the Horn Brothers?
The Horn Brothers? No.
So the Horn Brothers is a very close group of friends. They're three brothers, and they were supposed to do a show with one of the singers of, I believe, where Left Eye Lopez was one of the artists,
Okay. TLC?
and they're they were sleeping in a hotel on the floor,
Hmm.
and this is after all their awards and all that stuff. Afterwards, it's like they're practically broke.
Right.
And so, in our minds as average consumers, we don't realize the craziness. Now, they were supposed to do a reality show, just kind of reveal all that stuff, but nobody picked it up because nobody wants to reveal this type of stuff.
Right.
But the Horn Brothers were part of the group that was putting it together, and because they're in Atlanta, I thought maybe there might have been some crisscross.
Right.
But entertainment, entrepreneurship, not easy.
No,
but there's so many rewards by just doing it.
it's not easy, but it's doable, you know. And look, people just have to settle it within themselves that it's not so much that failure is going to happen and challenges are going to happen. They're literally necessary. So like there's no the equation of success includes failure and
Failure.
challenges. We master things from repetition. That's how you master anything, by repeating it. The only reason why you repeat anything is because you didn't do it right or you failed. So you if you run from failure, you run from mastering anything. To try, and we try to avoid failing. We plan as well as we can so that we don't fail. And that's not the point. You just plan as well as you can so your failure just can hurt as little as possible. But you're not trying not to fail. I wish people would just grab their head and embrace it, because the thing is, what we see failure is like being final, right? We see failure is like I suck at this, I got nothing out of it. And at the very, very least, you always get knowledge and wisdom out of failure. Because if nothing else, you know how it didn't work. And if you're really paying attention, you got an idea on what to do next. But you have to be willing to repeat. And the more you repeat, then the closer and closer you get to mastering it and becoming successful. So the day we stop running from trying to fail, the day we stop trying to avoid mess ups, is the day when we're going to get it and things are going to start working out for you. It's the weirdest oxymoron in the world, but that's what it is. That's just
And you know what? The same thing goes with relationships, and you were just talking about that, you know, in itself.
well, I mean, we're built for relationships. I mean, humans are built for relationships. I mean, there's a reason why there are laws that only allow inmates to be in, solitary confinement for X amount of time. Because, quite frankly, literally, when you're alone, there are things that happen to your brain and stuff like that regress, because we're built for community and relationship. There is no self-made person. I mean, in business, it is literally like, hear me. In business, it is literally impossible to succeed without people. Now, when I say it, you're like, oh, yeah, of course. But before I said that,
You weren't
you
thinking
try
about
to
that.
do it on your own. You know what I mean? And if you want those people to keep coming back, you have to establish what? A relationship. So that is a skill that you have to master. Stop running from failure. Focus on mastering relationships and come up with something that people need. If those three things right there, there's no way in the world you'll lose. It's so funny because I actually came up with a success formula. Now, this ain't some self-help book. This ain't, because people always say that how to do this, how to look. This is 6 years of research and study and comparison, and for everyone from Elon Musk to David Foster to Trump, literally, I compared my formula to each one of their lives, and they hit every single one. Now I'm gonna give you a cheat code real fast because I want people to buy this stuff later, but but essentially, I put it in the algebraic formula, and it's it's 3 times C plus E. All right, because you have three C's, you have three E's, and essentially it goes in this order: choice, education, execution, commitment, excellence, and then consistency. Choice. A lot of us just have an idea. We like the idea of something, and we want to do something. We desire to do something. And that desire can be so strong, we feel like we've chosen to do it. You know when you made a choice because there's an action that follows. That's how I know you made a choice. That's how you know you made a decision. Most of us are stuck in just making the freaking decision to do it, to press go. That's where most of us are stuck. Now, those that have the balls to go ahead and make that choice and get going, educate yourself about it. Yeah, true entrepreneurs, they jump out of the plane and then figure out how the parachute opens on the way down, right? Not all of us are true entrepreneurs. Me, I'm studying how the parachute was made. I'm studying. I get in. What do you call it? Preparation paralysis. So I'm doing all the studying that I never act. So the nice balance is between the two. So as you're doing it, continue to learn it. You should get to the point where you quite literally can teach it to someone, right? But the good thing about education is, or the part you have to understand with education, is that it never stops. So just wrap that around your brain. I will be learning for the rest of my life. Okay. So that's the education part. And then you have your execution. Don't get caught in the preparation paralysis. Once you learn it enough to go, execute, do it. And you're just learning as you go, getting better and better and
Because
better.
even there's some people that will get stuck just on the learning, and they just keep thinking that, oh, I'm going to take my next master class, and then the next master class, and
Right.
the next master class.
That's what I'm
Next thing you know,
calling.
they're broke.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling the preparation paralysis. You're just stuck right there, learning
Mhm.
and preparing. And then once you execute, you want to be committed. This is the first step, even before choice. This is probably the biggest step where people fail. And the way I always define commitment to people is sticking with the decision that you made when the mood that you were in when you made it has left. I usually have to repeat that, but they can rewind it. I mean, so because the googly feelings you had, the great idea, the inspiring, the fire, when you had the idea and you went to do it, that's gonna go. Why? Because it's a freaking emotion, and emotions are externally motivated by external situations and circumstances. So, like the weather, those situations and circumstances are going to change. So, therefore, your emotions going to change. The excitement is going to go away. The joy is going to go away. It's going to be not fun anymore. All of that kind of crap. Do you still stick with it then? When you stick with it, that's what commitment is. From relationships to entrepreneurships to a job. That's what commitment is. So you have to be committed. And then once you're committed, you want to be excellent. All right. I always tell people if you're not trying to be the best at it, why the heck are you even doing it? Why are you even doing it? All right. You should do it to be excellent. And guess what? Along that path of excellence is good, really good, great, which can all bring you money. So just the path to excellence is going to bring you money, but you're always striving for excellence, and excellence is not perfection, right?
Right. You'll never reach that.
Excellence is what works for the person who needs it. Okay, so you're just trying to be excellent. That's all you're trying to do. You're trying to be like, okay, there are 5 other people that do exactly what I do. They offer the same thing I do. Everything about us is exactly the same. Why are they going to choose me? They're going to choose you because you're just that much more excellent than they are. All right. And then finally is consistency. This is the part where 99.9% of the people fail. You can do everything I just said, but if you do it on Monday and then don't do it on Tuesday or Wednesday, you're back at square one again on Thursday. The consistency part is where all of that stuff matters. And consistency is simply discipline and commitment. Discipline plus commitment equals consistency. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. My bad. The choice and commitment or consistency equals discipline. That's what discipline is. It's action plus commitment and consistency. That's all discipline is. It's taking action and then doing it over and over and over and over again. That's all discipline is. So that last thing, consistency, that's the lock it up of all. Now, I always challenge people, and I'm not going to go through it, but when anyone listening to this, I want you to pick the dumbest thing you can think of. Because I've already done this for you on a high level of looking at Trump's businesses, looking at Elon Musk and Bill Gates. I've already done all that stuff for you. Trust me when I say they follow the protocol. But if you truly don't believe, when I say you can be successful at anything, when I speak, I usually go through the whole thing of brushing your teeth. And I just challenge your listeners, take brushing your teeth and apply the pattern to it. Apply, make a choice to brush my teeth, educate myself on how to properly brush my teeth, execute, actually brush my teeth, be committed. And I don't feel like I'm waking up too morning, I'm tired, I want to go to bed, I'm tired. I brush my teeth anyway. Excellence. You know how to brush your teeth, but be excellent about it. Don't do it for 30 seconds. Be in there for a full minute or two. Make them things sparkly white. Floss, all that kind of stuff. And then be consistent. Do that crap once or twice every single day. You have the best teeth in the world and you'll never have to see a dentist. I challenge people to put that formula to anything. I challenge them. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what.
No, man. Oh, this is golden stuff. All right. I know you got to go and see your mom.
Yeah, I gotta get my mom.
But man, I appreciate you so much. I am definitely going to speak to you further about other things, but um, I just wanted to have a powerful story, and you definitely have given me that.
No, I
So thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Stone, so much for your time,
Thank you.
and I look forward to going back to Atlanta and at least paying you a visit because I've been to your
Oh, yeah,
studio plenty of
you have
times.
to. Everyone listen
And
to listen.
send my love to Ian. And don't
Oh,
tell him
okay.
that I forgot his name for a second. That's
Now,
my stroke that happened a few years back.
Oh man, well, I'm glad you're here. I would have never known. That's great.
Yeah, actually, I was living in Atlanta and went to Vegas for some business. And on the flight back, I suffered a stroke in the plane.
Wow,
And the
that
results
is
were
crazy.
not physical, fortunately, but I did have, and I continue to have short-term memory loss.
Right.
And
Wow.
names is my big suffering thing.
Well, you
So
should feel good because I don't have an excuse, and I have the same problem. So you're actually better off than I am. But now I appreciate you having me on here. And to your listeners, man, make sure you guys support this guy. Support Carlos. One of the fastest ways to support your own endeavors is to support someone else's. So start here with Carlos, man, and support and share his stuff. So especially if you got something out of it, share it with your friends and
absolutely.
encourage them to follow and watch him.
So soon I'll be launching Nexus, the podcast network, not the
Okay.
podcast network. I apologize. So Nexus, part of what I'm doing is offering podcast hosting
Okay.
from
Oh,
the
okay.
audio to the video, all the way to
Nice.
television.
Nice.
So having
Wow.
podcasts on TV side by side with Netflix and all the other platforms.
That's dope.
Yes.
Do it, bro. Do it, man.
Always done. That's what I launched in Las Vegas just a week ago.
Nice. Congratulations, man. That's
So
awesome.
yes, but like I said, we'll talk about that and the future of entertainment. Thank
All
you all
right.
for watching. Thank you, Stone, very much for joining.
Thanks for having
And
me.
there's going to be more episodes. I'm sorry that I haven't done a few episodes in a bit because I've been trying to launch Nexus, and all the technology behind it is really complex. But there'll be a lot of conversations about that soon too. So thank you again, Stone, and I'll see you guys soon. And I don't have a slogan to go with yet, but I will soon enough. Ciao.
Bro. Thanks, man.